Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ohio State Call-In Show. I'm your host, Ryan Stano. Unfortunately, I will be going solo today. Garrison can't make it. He held the fort down for me on Monday, so I'm returning the favor today. So unfortunately, it will just be me today taking your guys' calls, but would love to hear from you guys. I got a few thoughts here. Um, you know, Early on, but I'm going to go ahead and post the chat link here into the comments section. That way, you guys can go ahead and join me. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on some things. But the first thing that I really wanted to talk about, um, I know I was gone on Monday, but I just wanted to have some quick thoughts about some stuff that I know Garrison probably touched on. One of them being that it seems like Larry Johnson, uh, he doesn't seem to be holding his end of the bargain when it comes to recruiting anymore. It seems like Matt Patricia has taken more of a he's taken more of a role as far as recruiting goes, which is surprising because when he got hired, we had talked about the fact that we didn't think that he was going to be the guy who was recruiting a whole lot, quite frankly. Um, he was expected to be someone who was just going to be a a guy who just kind of does setting up the defense and having Ohio State be a really good, just really good defense. And he's actually taken more of an active role in recruiting, which has been great. And that's something that we like to see. So, kudos to him. Kudos to the fact that he's decided to go ahead and take a more active role in recruiting than what we thought. And I would like to see Larry Johnson get out there and, I don't know, actually offer some kids a little bit more. And look, if you're 73 years old and you don't want to be on the road anymore, that's fine. But why don't you just go ahead and retire at that point? That's what's surprising me. The last thing I'll talk about here before we go ahead and bring in our first caller is the fact that this whole Ohio State Texas thing. For those who didn't see, there was a report that came out from Bucknuts from Pat Murphy that said that Ohio State actually wants to move the game back. Like they want to be able to move it back to more of a primetime slot, and Texas is the one who's actually preventing that from happening. So instead of this game being played at 8 o'clock at night, and also on either on Saturday or on Sunday, instead Texas is pushing back, and they are hoping to keep this game at noon. That tells me a lot more about Texas than it does about Ohio State. That tells me that Texas doesn't think that they can beat Ohio State when they're at their best and in a certain environment. We saw that in the Cotton Bowl during the college football playoff. Ohio State just went in and pretty much smoked Texas from, right after the first half ended, after that Trevion Henderson touchdown on the screen pass. The momentum was always with Ohio State, and that kind of carried through. And they won the game by double digits on a neutral field. Texas clearly doesn't think that they can beat Ohio State on the road, and they want to try to mitigate any advantage that Ohio State would have. So, quite frankly, to me, they're just scared. They're playing scared about it, and it's quite frankly, it's unbecoming of a program like Texas. I mean, they were the blue bloods of college football. They were clearly the best team in the SEC last year. If they were as good as they thought that they, as they think that they should be, they shouldn't care where they're going to play Ohio State, what time, where it is. They should just want to go in there and beat the daylights out of them. So it's a little bit surprising to see Texas take this approach. We'll see if the game time does change. Nothing's been finalized yet. There's still some things being worked on behind the scenes. It sounds like there might be a change in the game time. Ohio State fans raised a lot of hell to make sure that that happened because, quite frankly, Ohio State doesn't get enough primetime games against really good opponents. So this is something that they're hoping to change, basically. They're hoping to get this into a prime time slot, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And I, for one, would love to have that home night game at the Shoe right off the bat. And I don't understand why Texas. I guess I do understand why Texas doesn't want to have it on Sunday, because Sunday night, again, it's a night game, and it's kind of it's an advantage for Ohio State. But that would be the time to move it to Sunday, because there's no NFL football on Labor Day weekend, so that would be the time to be able to do it. We'll see if that happens. Here I see. I don't have a score prediction for the game yet. We'll see. We'll see who ends up winning that game. I think it's going to be a close game right now, just because Ohio State doesn't know who their quarterback's going to be right now. We all believe it's going to be Julian Sayin, but that job hasn't been locked down yet. And so, we'll see how he does in his first real game action, and especially against one of the best teams in the country, because Texas is going to be one of the best teams in the country coming in. So, with that, we'll go ahead and bring in our first caller. And this is we'll have a little bit more of an Ohio State aesthetic setup here in this room. For those who don't know, I just moved into a new house, so we are still moving a lot of things around. That's why I wasn't on the show on Monday, because we were moving on Monday. So there's a lot of things in boxes that need to be moved. let's just put it that way. But we'll go ahead and bring in our first caller.
What's
Hey
up?
Tim, what's going on?
Nothing about the Texas game. Oh, you brought up a good topic because it seems like I'm not trying to say that you one of the fans that tired of playing this big team at 12 o'clock, but every time Ohio State they play a big team at 12 o'clock, a top 10 team at 12 o'clock, the TV ratings is off the chart. And now they're like, oh, we want to face Texas at nighttime, but so Sunday fans they need to accept the time, and the time change cannot make a home team better. They just need to, and then we don't know where we do not know where they foreknew the defensive line starters, where they were able to jail. We don't know that because of Ohio State. They losing 4. They hold the defensive line unit from the past 2 season, and now they got to play a premier slash tier 1 SEC the C school, and I think that what Texas did in the big house, they probably got a chance to do it again in the horseshoe, but it's gonna be closer.
Yeah, I think the big thing with this matchup with Texas is Ohio State has already beaten Texas before. Like, Texas understands what Ohio State does, but Ohio State is obviously the defending national champions for a reason. I do think Texas is going to come in with a lot of motivation, because Ohio State's the last team that they faced, like, they eliminated them. I think part of the reason why they want to keep the game at noon is to kind of have the weather a little bit in their favor as well, because Labor Day weekend at noon in Columbus, Ohio, it's still going to be pretty hot. So they want to have the weather as close to what they're used to as possible. Even if it's an hour earlier than what they're used to playing games, because a noon game, it's 11 o'clock Texas time. I still think they would rather take the weather advantage, and also again, not have Ohio State fans who have been, I mean, let's face it, been drinking all day and ready to go for a night game. But I, I,
And
I just want to know what
I
time
keep
the game's
watching
going to be
that.
at so I can plan.
Yes, I keep watching that Ohio State spring game. It seems like to me that the new players, they're supposed to be replacing the JTs, the Sawyer, the Williams, the Hamilton.
Yeah.
It seems like but they can't even tackle their own running backs. And some people it's saying that they're gonna be the next two that just left,
Yeah,
but
I mean, the
they
defensive line
struggle.
is definitely a concern.
They struggle to
I mean,
tackle
they,
their
like you
own running
mentioned,
backs.
well, like you mentioned, they do replace their entire starting defensive line. The running backs are actually going to be pretty good, so I'm not as concerned about that. What I was more concerned about in the spring game is the fact that they couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback. Like there was no push at all in the pass, and that's why they went ahead and got Bo Atkinson from the transfer portal, and he's definitely going to help them a lot.
The second half,
But I am still concerned
they
about the middle.
started to get pressure in the second half, but he couldn't. He kept getting sacked a lot in the second half when they disbanding the run game because at one point the defense was almost down 4 touchdowns at one point.
Yeah, it's it's going to be interesting to see how they go here.
Because normally
With the,
in that Ohio State the spring game, now going into the coming out of the halftime break, the score is normally neck and neck, or to say like the offense they up by a field goal, or the defense they up by a field goal, and it might be tied. But this year they had the comeback from behind, and they still lost. But that's not how we do our spring game. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much, to be honest, you can take from the spring game. Yeah, I know I've got some audio reverb going on. I see the comments here. I don't know if that's on my end or if that's on Tim's. I don't know. I don't know if there was reverb when it was just me talking. Maybe you guys can help me out with that. Um,
so
but
so so so, a lot of people they hyping that James Franklin, that his team is going to be a preseason national title favorites. Did you think that? Did you think that that's just hype because there been some reports that they copy and paste what Ohio State did because of when Michigan they brought back about 75% of their starters from the 22 team.
yeah,
When Ohio State had saw that in Penn State, they probably like there's no way that another another team can bring back the in between 70 to 80% of veteran starters, and bring home a national title, and see in a Rose Bowl. A year later, Ohio State they won a national title. I would believe that it oh, okay. It seems like that the last two Big Ten teams that brought home a national title, that they had to win. They had to win a Rose Bowl. So I thinking for Penn State to bring home a national title, they may have to win a Rose Bowl the order to do that, because that was kind of strange that the last two national champion they needed they needed to win a football game in Pasadena. That's kind of strange.
Yeah, no, that is strange.
No,
And also
we normally don't see two Rose Bowl. We normally don't see two. We normally don't see two different Rose Bowl winners bringing home a national title.
yeah.
If they didn't
Also for some
if they didn't expand to the playoffs, we would never have seen that happen.
You're right. And also for I don't know if you've got YouTube playing in the background or something, Tim, but this might help with the reverb that some people are happening. You look at the comment here. I don't know if that'll help.
I don't. I don't have any apps
Okay.
in the background.
Okay, maybe it's on my end or something, but I'll fix that here later. To your point about Penn State, I don't think they are good enough to be considered a national champion. They do return a lot of production, but
They brought back.
they obviously have
they seen a quarterback.
Yeah, but they obviously have an Ohio State problem. They haven't. They've been 1-10 against Ohio State under James Franklin, and the one they got was because of a blocked field goal.
Yeah.
And they didn't even make the playoff that year either.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're a true national title contender until
They
they
lost to
prove
Michigan
that they
that
beat
year
Ohio
too.
State.
They lost
Yeah.
to Michigan that year too. So.
Yeah, like I said, until they beat Ohio State, I don't really take them all that seriously.
You mean me neither, but can Ryan Day to fix his problem this year?
That's the hope. They should be able to. Again, they've got a lot more talent this year than Michigan does, but hoping that the aggressiveness of the college football playoff kind of carries over to the game this year.
Yeah, but we brought in more defensive linemen from the portal. We brought in more. We brought in more portal the pieces compared to y'all, but some of your fans, they still kind of mad at Ryan Davis because the one that corner that kept getting a lot of flash. They wanted him to go to the lead, and they probably like he going he might cost y'all some games that if y'all do lose, it's okay, but because the team is at your level, but y'all lose to some of these mid-tier teams on the road, like in Illinois, they brought back 80 to 90, but they brought back almost 20 players.
Yeah, they got a lot of returning production. By the way, are you listening to the stream on another device, perhaps? Maybe that's why there's some reverb.
Oh yeah, that was the Michigan one. I just turned it down, son.
Got it. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, it's still reverbing. But anyway, it seems like, you know, to your point, as far as Illinois goes, I mean, I know Illinois is like the darling of the Big Ten this year. They're going to be good. They might be this year's IU as far as a Big Ten team who can sneak into the CFP, but I don't see them causing that much trouble.
This year's Illinois, Indiana.
Yeah. No, I don't see them actually.
Better offense.
I mean, their offense is good. Like, Altmaier comes back. They've got some decent pieces on the offensive line. their schedule is a little, I don't want to say easy, but I mean, because they still play Ohio State, and I think they play Penn State too. But other than those two, it's pretty manageable.
I don't
Cat
know,
keeps
but
trying to come
because
here and
they
hang
just
out.
played Penn State back to back. They just played the Penn State back to back, so I don't know if they're playing them again.
Yeah. See, so I
I
mean,
do know
next year
that
their schedule.
Ohio State, the player, they need to take this game seriously. But even, but this is a rival game. But even though it's not at a Michigan or a Penn State level, but you still got a small little
Yeah, you get the
rivalry
Iowa
with
Buck.
that school though.
Yeah, you definitely got the. I mean, you're still playing for the Iowa Buck. It's still a trophy game in that game, but I still don't think they're
Yeah.
have that many issues. Um, got any last things here for me, Tim, before we kind of switch segments? Get out of here, ball.
So
My cat keeps trying to join
the
us.
three tough games. So which games you think that they're going to lose, and which games you think that they're going to win? Okay, between Michigan, Penn State, and, and, and Texas for all of the information that you currently know right now.
I'm not worried about Penn State until I have a reason to be, aka until they finally beat Ohio State. Texas, they could lose that game. Um, it wouldn't be shocking if they did, just because it's the first time that they, that Julian Sain's starting, or maybe Keen Holtz, but probably saying it's the first time Brian Hartline's calling plays in a game, first time after Patricia's calling plays for Ohio State. So there's a lot of moving parts there. And quite frankly, until they can prove that they can beat Michigan on a regular basis, that game's going to be a concern as well. But I still think I do think this is the year that they break that. I think they probably go 11-1, 10-2 at the absolute worst. They're going to make the CFP again.
I do know that that map of Patricia his his system is not really it's not really it's not really it's not really Ohio State standard, because they like to have a 3-4 or 4-3. So this is some type of disguising your zone coverages, but he like to run
He likes to run multiple
of
systems. Yeah, he doesn't have a defined base defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We'll see how it goes. And, hopefully he does as well as that happens. So,
Yeah, but you gotta face a, a lot of 1-2 punch over the running backs, and I hearing that because of that, the hit system, it might be a mismatch.
yeah. Again,
Because
he hasn't really shown. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really been
they do got
on what he's
Jill
doing.
Knowles, Penn State. They do got Jill Knowles. So.
Yeah, they do. Not really worried about that. Well, appreciate you calling in, Tim, and definitely want to, hopefully you'll be back next week as well. I think Garrison should be back next week as well. So.
Okay, and the 26th season, they coming to the big house, and
Yes, they are.
unless they beat Ohio State, I will not be worrying about them. As soon as we find out that Ryan Day he finally lost to James the Franklin, it might be a problem for my fan base, but until then they gotta prove it.
Fair enough. I
And
can't
they
really say
can't
anything
and
other.
they can't just say it with words. They have to show it on the field.
Yep, I agree with you.
But each
All
time
right,
y'all
thanks for
play
calling
them,
in.
y'all still winning, but y'all are losing by less points every single time. So that's telling to me that the the chances of y'all losing is getting greater. Each
We'll
win,
see. We'll see
you're
how it
winning.
goes.
Oh, okay. I gotta go. So
Yep, we'll see, Tim.
I do got the link to my YouTube video, my YouTube channel in the chat. So anybody that wants to subscribe, because on my channel, it's basically a Michigan channel, but sometime I will be coming out with some Penn State, Ohio State, some rival content for the rivals, so I can stay up to date with my rivals. So when my team do play my rivals, but but that would tell me that it might be hard to beat y'all. It's gonna be neck and neck. It's gonna be it's gonna be easy. You go into a rival game blind, and somebody told me that it if you were betting, bet if you was a Ohio State fan and you betting on Michigan and Penn State to lose, but to your team, and and all that time you wasn't studying your rivals, and you betted for Ohio State to win, and one of those teams you did beat Penn State, but the 2 games later you went to the big house and you betted to win by 14 points, and you actually lost by 25 points, and all that money you lost. So that's why sometimes I be the promoting. It's better to study your rival before you bet early, because but don't bet on a certain team in week 1, because by the time the rival game starts, they might be playing. They might be playing. They might be outperforming their goals.
Yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah.
We'll see you, Tim.
Okay. All right. Bye bye.
Bye. Okay. I know there was some reverb there, so hopefully that's fixed. I don't think it was on my end. So hopefully the sound's a little bit better. But some of the things he was talking about, um, oh, too many people are high on Penn State, quite frankly. I understand they return a lot of production. A lot of people are high on Drew Aller. I am not one of those people. I think he kind of is what he is at this point. I understand he's a former 5-star recruit. Like, he's got all these accolades from, coming up in the high school ranks. And he's played, I wouldn't say poorly, but I think he kind of is what he is at this point. He's a relatively high floor guy, but he doesn't really have much of a ceiling. Like, he plays at that floor, and when things get tough, I don't really think he kind of has it. And that's honestly going to be a problem for Penn State in some of these bigger games, specifically Ohio State. They're probably going to make the playoff again, but if they face Ohio State again, I think there's going to be real issues. But we'll go ahead and bring in our next caller.
Hey, how are you? Hi, how you doing this evening? I
Good.
wanted to see if you had already broached the subject. I hadn't got a chance to listen earlier to the noon slot, or maybe the Ohio State Texas game not being the evening game. Interesting. Last time we talked about like 05, 06. I think we talked about the 05 team actually. and you can't talk about that season. I know you mentioned the Texas game, and I was just wondering what your thoughts are on them possibly doing that game at noon. I don't know about you, but I am a fan of the evening games. I think there's something to the shoe at night. I think it is really cool. I know Urban years ago talked about it as a good recruiting tool, that recruits. It's something to kind of woo
Yeah.
recruits and that they really enjoy. I mean, just your thoughts on it maybe not being an evening game. I don't think it is going to be an evening game, or possibly being a noon game.
Yeah, so I did open up the show with this a little bit, but Ohio State, they tried to move the time slot back, like they wanted it to be more of a primetime game, and they, according to
Hmm.
Pat Murphy from Bucknuts, they even tried to move it to Sunday and have it a Sunday night game because there's no NFL
Wow.
games on because it's Labor Day weekend, and Texas
Hmm.
said no. So right now, my guess is it would still more than likely be a noon slot. I think the latest it's probably going to go is 3:30. It
Hmm.
seems like Texas is pretty dug in on it not being moved to Sunday, and they can't really move it to Saturday because Fox has baseball on that night,
Mm.
and they're prioritizing the baseball game over what a college football slot would be. So I think at best it's going to be 3:30. I would be surprised if they moved it to Sunday. The only way that I think that would happen, and I don't think this is feasible, is if Ohio State were to give Texas some cash to go ahead and say, hey, let's go ahead and move this to Sunday, have this a primetime game. But the athletic department's already so much in debt, that would be a waste of money, in my opinion. So, um, you know,
Well, are you? By the way, are you sour on the Klatt Gus Johnson crew, as some Ohio State fans have been? I've actually cut Klatt some slack over the years. I think to be honest with you, I think some fan bases, maybe even our own fan base, kind of come at announcers. I mean, if the announcers aren't kissing the team's butt, they tend to
yeah,
get on the announcer. They just want the announcer to be a cheerleader. In fact, I think this was what was happening with Herbstreit years ago. I think there were some fans that were just getting on Kirk Herbstreit just for the fact that he wasn't a cheerleader for the program. Now, I think
agreed.
Herbstreit has gone south in some other areas. I think he needs to do a little bit better job of controlling his emotions on TV a little bit. But that's a different problem that I have with Herbstreit. I never expected him to be up there and be a cheerleader for Ohio State while he was trying to call the games. I mean, obviously he's got to be give a fair assessment of the game. I think that stands to
Yeah,
reason. But as far as the Johnson Klatt crew, I like Klatt. I think he knows the game well. I think he delivers the game well. I do think Gus's shtick has gotten a little bit old over the years. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Chris Berman, where it was kind of funny and cute early on, and then it wore on me after a while. I don't know
see,
if you have any problems with that crew or what your thoughts are, but
yeah, well, to your point about Herbstreit, I kind of agree. Where I thought people got on his case too much initially, early in
yeah.
his career for him not being super pro Ohio State, but like he's got to be objective. Like he can't just, like you said, be a cheerleader for the program. Now I do think he swung a little bit too much in the opposite way, where it seemed like he was almost going more pro SEC. Like I mean, the Tennessee game, it sounded like he was rooting for the Vols, which was really weird. As far as the Klatt and Gus crew goes, I used to really like. I really liked Gus. Gus was, one of my favorite announcers. Period. I think Klatt does a great job, and quite frankly, now I think Klatt's kind of carrying that crew. I think Gus has
Mm,
lost a step or two. It seems like he makes at least one or two mistakes every game now. I just it bums me out because I really like what Gus, was, and I don't know that, I just I, I wish he would be a little bit. A lot of people actually got on him for being too excited all the time. I think he's now kind of gone the other way a little bit in
mm,
certain moments where he's kind of tempered it down a bit. I like excited Gus. Like I like when he shows that side of him because it's like you're supposed to be excited. It's a big play. It's sports. That's why we watch the games. So I I think Klatt has been carrying that crew probably for the last 2 years or so.
mhm.
Um, I don't see Fox really moving off of Gus anytime soon. They paid him a lot. I don't know how long his contract goes for, but I know they paid a lot of money for him to be their number one guy. Um, at this point, I think he's gotten. I think he's okay at basketball. You know, the Fox coverage for
Yeah.
basketball, I think he's good with Jimmy Johnson. But the football, it's like I said, it's slipping, and it's just sad to see.
Yeah, yeah. I like their pregame. I think Urban. By the way, I can't believe that one year they went to Bob Stoops. By the way, who was absolutely horrible
Yeah,
by on that pregame show. Ingram is decent. Although I'm trying to decide: is Ingram an upgrade over Reggie Bush or a downgrade over Reggie Bush? I don't know if that's.
I think it's a downgrade. I actually liked
Oh,
Reggie
okay. Yeah, I didn't think
on the
Bush was
Fox
bad.
pregame. Yeah, I thought he was good. I think Ingram. Yeah, they brought Ingram on to try to like have a little bit more energy, I think, but I think some of that
Yeah,
energy is like manufactured. I don't like you can tell it's not like super genuine, especially depending on where the game is. Uh, I mean, and I thought the chemistry obviously between Bush and Leinart was there because they were teammates.
yeah, yeah,
But as far as I like Brady, I think
yeah.
Urban does a
Quinn's
great
good.
job there now that he's back. But I think Ingram's probably the weak spot there, and I wish they would have kept Reggie. Quite frankly, I thought Reggie was doing a little bit better job. But I mean, I don't mind Mark Ingram.
Yeah, yeah, it's debatable because I still like the ESPN crew. By the way, I still think McAfee and Saban have a chemistry that I think is actually kind of cool. To be honest with you, some people
Yeah,
don't like it, but I've kind of warmed up to it.
yeah, I don't mind McAfee. On game day, I think he's okay. I mean, obviously now with Lee Corso retiring after the Ohio
Yeah,
State Texas game, I mean that's like that's who they got as the permanent replacement. Saban's been a lot better on there than I thought he would. I mean, he just won a sports Emmy, so I mean, good for him.
yeah,
I wish, quite frankly, they would get rid of that clown Desmond, but it is what it
yes,
is. Wish we could see a
yes,
little bit less bias for him, but
yes,
you know, I generally like that crew as well, and depending on what channel the Ohio State game is on, I'll flip back and forth between those two pregame shows. Depending on how I feel. I think they're both good.
yeah. Get rid of Desmond, absolutely. Right. And it's sad because I always thought Charles Woodson did a decent job. For a
Yeah,
team up north guy, but Desmond, you talk about a guy that's just completely in the tank. You're right. You're absolutely right on that one. No doubt about
yeah,
it.
and Woodson they sometimes bring in to the Fox pregame show. Like
Hmm.
they'll bring him in during certain games, especially when Ohio State Michigan play, which makes sense. But
Sure.
yeah, I think he does a decent job as well. I thought Ohio, I thought that they should have kept on on uh on game day on college game day on ESPN. That's a little bit bummed when they got rid of David Pollock because I thought he was going to be the guy
Yeah.
who
Oh yeah.
replaced Corso. I thought he was pretty good, from an SEC perspective. I thought he was able to hide his bias, pretty well, um, as well. But
Do you know who's good over there? Really, I think's come up is Greg McElroy.
he's a good announcer. I think he's a really good play-by-play guy. I just ESPN when I really there's only a couple of commentators that I really don't like
Yeah.
is I am not a fan of Joe Tessitore. I
Mm,
don't like how
it is weak.
he announces games. I think he tries to be too corny sometimes with his one-liners after a score, and that's just something that bums me out that they pair McElroy with him sometimes because Joe is he's so much better. I like it better when they pair Tessitore with either Dave Pash or even McDonough.
Hmm.
I like those guys more than Tessitore. But other than that, I mean, in the Fox guys, I I don't need to hear Tim Brando talk. I really don't. I
Oh
don't like
wow.
when we have Ohio State games that he has to do. But I actually like the NBC crew surprisingly.
Yeah.
Noah
No.
Eagle and
Blackledge.
Blackledge.
Blackledge has always been good. I've always said that. I think Blackledge is just solid. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, one last thing I wanted to get to.
yeah,
We talked in-state recruiting. Well, I mentioned Ohio State, kind of how they've recruited over the years. Last time we talked, um, follow the recruiting game fairly close, I would think.
oh yeah.
Just your thoughts. They've had some misses in-state recently. Do you have any thoughts on them maybe not prioritizing? some of the in-state talent as much as they have, or much as maybe they should, especially because I do think, whereas maybe there was a few down years for the in-state talent, I think the last 2 or 3 years, the in-state talent has really kicked up a level.
Well, that's honestly what I was gonna mention is as far as, like, the in-state talent goes this year,
Yeah.
it's actually not as great. Ohio typically, almost every year, you can count on them being a top 5 state when it comes to talent. Personally, I think they're closer to a top 3 state most years. This year, unfortunately, is just not one of those years. Like, they don't have a
Okay.
single consensus five-star recruit in the state. And, if you're looking at, the Ohio State pipeline from Ohio, as of right now, this is according to 247 and their composite rankings. I really like the composite because it gets all the recruiting services involved. Right now, they have they have 4 of the top 10 kids from the state of Ohio committed to them, and they're
Hmm.
expected to lock up a fifth in Sincere Johnson, the edge guy from Glenville. So,
Right.
they're taking, half of the top 10 kids. And normally, like I said, when Ohio talent is at its best and they've got the, you know, when they've got five-star recruits, high rated four-star recruits, they usually jump in. But, they don't prioritize that as much as they used to because they're a national brand. They can get the best talent from
Sure.
anywhere. And they've
Sure.
done a lot more work in Texas, a lot more work in California, and a lot more work in Florida. And
Yeah.
those states have five-star recruits every single year. Like, it does not matter
Right.
what year, they're going to get the best guys. They're going to have some of the best guys in the country. So if you can get those five-star kids out of those states and then supplement that with some of the, I guess, lower ranked four-star kids, a couple three-star kids from the state of Ohio, then I think it's a pretty successful recruiting class. But I just think this year it's more of a product of the talent not being as high end as what it has been the past years.
Yeah, because it was kind of weird. Because I think in 20, like the COVID year, and then maybe the year after the COVID year, it seemed down a little bit. And then I thought there for about a 2 or 3 year, like maybe 22, 23, maybe even into 24, it seemed like the talent kicked up, at
Yep.
least to those previous couple years, to 20 and 21, as a comparison, those 3 years to the previous 2 years, it kicked up a level. But I had not noticed that this year was a little bit more down compared. I did saw that they lost a Glenville offensive lineman that out of state
Yeah,
that I thought maybe could have been a decent get. I'm a big supporter of always getting Glenville players. You know what I mean? As being an Ohio State
sure,
fan, knowing
sure.
what that program is done for Ohio State.
Yeah, and I'll give Tyler Bowen a little bit of grace when it comes to that because he's done the exact opposite of Justin Fry did, which I actually like. He's sent out a bunch of offers to kids all over across the country. Like he's not holding scholarships. He's letting them fly and being like, "Hey, I think you could be good. I think you can be good." Like, he's sending them out, and they've already got 3 commits for the offensive line for this class. And if they miss out on a couple of the in-state kids
Yeah,
who are a little bit lower rated, I'm okay with that,
yeah,
especially if they're able to land Felix Ojo. I mean, I think he's a five-star tackle. He's a guy who could probably come in and start day one, and
right.
he would also be the first five-star recruit on the offensive line since Paris Johnson. So that would be a massive get, and they're still in on him. I know Texas is slightly favored right now to land him, but Ohio State, I think he comes in to visit next weekend, and they've got a few recruits coming in next weekend. So if they can get someone like him, that's a honestly that can be a program changer as far as with the offensive line pipeline can be for the next few years.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because I was not a fan of the recruiting at the end of the stud era. By the way, I thought he had some misses there towards the end. I think he had a few in-state misses actually his last year in recruiting. So I was telling people, as bad as people kind of got down, on Justin Fry and recruiting, and I think I had some other issues with him too. Maybe I'm still not over him playing Zen Maholski against
Yeah.
Nebraska, or how we got to that decision. But yeah,
Yeah.
we don't want to go down that road. But
Nope.
I
Nope. Wish him the best of luck in Bloomington.
yes, but it seems like our last two offensive line coaches, I would say, had some misses in recruiting. But I'm really encouraged by what I'm seeing from Bowen so far. And you're right. If he can nationalize it, although there's still that theory. You do get a lot of good offensive linemen from in the state of Ohio. You know that theory. If you get your big boys from the Midwest and you get your speed from the South, which has always been kind of a natural theory to recruiting.
Yeah, no, for sure. And to your point about Coach Stud, he
Yeah.
he started out recruiting really well, and then quite frankly, as you mentioned, he got lazy. Um,
Mhm.
and that's essentially why they let him go, because he wasn't he he just wasn't getting on the recruiting trails as much as he should be. And I mentioned earlier to start the show, that's kind of how Larry Johnson seems to be right now. But they're obviously not going to fire him. They're just going to tell him next year to maybe not to maybe not come next, come back next year.
I always thought
So
just I'm sorry, just real quick. I always thought it was two things with Larry. I think it's a little bit of ageism with Larry. I think everybody's just waiting for him to retire. And then I think that there was a period of time where everybody was waiting for somebody to see the next Boza or Chase Young. I always thought it was a twofold component. I think it's a little bit of age, and people are waiting for him to retire. And then I think there was, because maybe a few of our guys didn't become Boza or Chase Young, which are generational
yeah.
guys. I think some of the fans got upset.
Well, and it doesn't help when JT and Jack, they were 5-star recruits in the
Yeah.
same recruiting class, and they didn't develop into the bona fide first round picks that
Yes.
everyone expected them to be coming out of high school. When you get those, we get the number one recruit, overall recruiting class, and another guy who's like third overall.
Yeah.
You expect a little bit more consistent production, so that's also part of the reason why the fan base, kind of had that reaction.
Right. Hey, love the show. You guys going to get together with Garrison come Monday again?
Yeah, he had something come up here late, so I'm running solo, but he should be back Monday. We'll both be in attendance on Monday. I know last Monday I had to, I popped in for half a second, but we were moving in, so we should be in a little bit better of a spot, on that holiday Monday, Labor Day evening. So yeah, we'll be there.
Okay. Well, I'll try and make it back. Enjoy the show. Take care.
Yeah, thanks so much. See you. All right, before we go ahead and move on to some more of our callers. We'd like to, there's a little something we got to get to. So, as you can see here, I've got some reading to do real quick before we go ahead and move on. If you get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the voice of college football, let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. Check out the experience of one of our current partners. I'm here posted on the screen. They had a great experience sponsoring, one of our channels this past season. Social media web engagement has gone up since we started the campaign. We have acquired new clients as a result of the sponsorship. We are here to deliver for you. So if you're interested, please contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. So now that there's some other stuff that I would like to get to here before we have some more callers go ahead and come in. And one of them is, we talked a little bit about recruiting before. And Ohio State still has a top 3 recruiting class, even though they haven't been able to land a quarterback in this class yet. One of the quarterbacks who they're looking at is actually 4-star recruit Luke Fahey. He is actually out of the state of California. He's not the highest rated quarterback, out there, but he's someone who can come in and kind of bridge the gap as a 2026 recruit. And, I think that would help a lot. He's, I don't want to say he's similar to the transfer portal recruit that they just got from Houston Christian, but, he's someone who probably if he plays, it would not be an ideal scenario. I think that they would be hoping that he's more of a break glass in case of an emergency type of guy. But Ohio State likes him. Ryan Day believes that he can develop. So I think I think that's something that they could end up doing here. But we do have a caller coming in, so I will go ahead and bring him up. Hey,
How you
Jackson, what's
doing?
going on?
It's going pretty good. How you doing tonight, Ryan?
Doing okay. First show in the new house, so it's exciting.
Oh, nice. You got a new house. Awesome.
Yeah. That's what. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make a whole lot of the show Monday. Just kind of popped in because we were actually moved on Monday. So Garrison kind of had to run solo. I'm returning the favor by running solo tonight as he had something popped up. So what do you got for me?
Oh, man. 100 days till kickoff for the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's going to be cool.
That's right. Now, you as an Alabama guy, do you think DeBoer is going to, turn things around this year after, let's be honest, it was a down year by Alabama standards last year?
Oh, yeah. He's going to. I believe he can, and I believe he will.
I believe in DeBoer as a coach.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like some of the people that were upset with him last season saying that Saban wouldn't have done this, Saban wouldn't have done that. That's what I was afraid of. Like some of those people that clearly don't watch college football throwing the baby out with the bathwater, having their little hissy fits. But that's what happens when you have a bad day sometimes in the world of college football. But I saw something from 11 Warriors where Texas at Ohio State almost was a Sunday game, but Fox or somebody that's running the Big Ten was like, no, we don't want to compete against Miami Notre Dame.
It actually wasn't Fox. It was Texas. So Ohio State was actually the one that, they were actually the one that proposed a time change. They said, hey, if we can't have it later Saturday night because you're showing baseball, which is a whole nother thing, then can we move the game to Sunday? And if they move the game to Sunday, there would be a night game. And Texas is like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and say no to that. And quite frankly, it just shows that Texas is running scared. They don't want to face Ohio State at night in the shoe, which I guess I can't necessarily blame them, but it's clear that they're not willing to play Ohio State any place, anytime, anywhere.
Well, it's their loss. But, I mean, we know next year, 2026, it'll be on ABC with Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler at the call.
Yeah. So, well, it's probably going to end up being a noon game on that Saturday now. So, that's what everyone expected when Fox got the game. So, it is what it is. Ohio State will make the best of it. This will probably benefit Texas a little bit more because it will be still warmer at that time of day, and that's a little bit more what Texas is used to that time of year. So we'll see how it all shakes out.
Well, it'll be a fun game going into week one. It's going to be fun watching it on Fox, hearing Gus Johnson get all excited. But
yeah, I wish Gus would be a little bit better in his games, but we'll see how. Maybe he can turn it around this year. He's been slipping a little bit in the last couple of years, which is a bummer because I really like Gus.
All I'm asking is don't be putting Ohio State Purdue on big noon kickoff. Maybe put it on like NBC or at like CBS. Like you gotta give Gary Danielson nostalgia for Purdue.
Purdue stinks. Let's not do that.
Well, they won't stink for long with Barry Odom. That I can guarantee.
You see what?
They won't stink for very long with Barry Odom.
I mean, 1-11 last year. They didn't beat a single FBS team. That's not a great start for the new era.
That is true.
We'll see.
That
is
is
how
true.
That goes.
Yeah, Ryan Walters was a disaster. It had Daryl Hazel vibes written all over it, but Barry Odom, I think it's much similar to the Jeff Brom era in West Lafayette. I think that's what you're going to see with the Barry Odom era. He's going to have him rocking and rolling like Brom did, like Joe Tiller did. That's what I believe Barry Odom's going to do. Now, is it going to be really hard compared to the Brom era and the Joe Tiller era? Yes, because you got to travel all over the country. But do I think Barry Odom can pull
Yeah,
off the impossible at Purdue? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the Joe Tiller era was definitely the golden era of Purdue football. I don't ever really see them getting back to that in today's NIL landscape. Unfortunately, I think that they're one of the teams that's kind of get left behind, unless the you know I know they're getting more money from the Big Ten revenue sharing as far as more teams coming in and the giant media deal they just signed, but I don't see them being able to keep up in terms of the recruiting with the NIL race. Which it'd be cool to see Purdue be better on a more consistent basis. But I mean, if IU can do it for a year, maybe Purdue can.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to get off here because you got another caller. But first, I'd like to tell everybody, tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Kroger about the magic that Ryan Stanos and Garrison bring Mondays and Thursday nights on the Ohio State Primetime Live Show and the Ohio State Primetime Live College Show. Plus, don't forget to tell everyone about the magic that Ryan is creating on Fansided. And I can tell you right now, he writes some amazing articles. You should definitely get a look
Thanks.
at his articles. I'll tell you right now, if I want some takes on the Lakers from a writing article or the Buckeyes, I go to Ryan Sanders, and you should too.
That's right. Appreciate it, Jackson. We'll see you.
I'll see you, good buddy.
I'll go ahead and bring in our next caller here, final caller for the evening. What's going on, Rob?
Not much. You, man? How's it going?
Going good, going good. Running a solo tonight. Garrison had a conflict, so we're talking to a variety of people here, talking on a variety of topics. What do you got for me?
Man, so I recently made this video because I got tired of just seeing like these Michigan fans in the comment section just talking about how Ohio State is gonna have this down year like Michigan did when they lost all their players. I'm like, I'm failing to see this parallel that they're just
Yeah.
so desperately wanting. It's just like the video I made, if you look back to after that 2015 season when they lost all those players at the draft, we're talking about Joey Bosa, Eli Apple, and a bunch of others. And Urban Meyer stayed head coach. You had Ed Warner and Tim Beck as offensive coordinator, QB coach. I said they were trash because they were no imagination. And then Luke Fickell as a defensive coordinator. I'm like, even though they lost all that talent, it was the recruiting trail that made up for it. And I don't
That's right.
think Michigan fans, like some Michigan fans, realize just how big that is to have top 5 recruiting classes year in and year out. Because they're still trying to make this parallel, even though, Ryan Day has essentially done the same thing. He's had top 5 recruiting classes year in and year out. And you know what, dude? They keep moving the field goal post. At first it was, and I don't know if you agree with me, but at first it was, he has Urban's players. Let's see what he does with his own players. And then just like literally up till now, look what he's done with his own players. He's had top 5 recruiting classes. Now that they won a national championship, it's just like, okay, let's see what, like, once all these players are gone. I'm just thinking like, you clearly just kind of don't understand why. Like, I'm sorry, but like the recruiting class that they've had, they're not going to have this giant fall off. I mean, even the coaching hires. I mean, even though like Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly are gone, who was the brains behind the operation? It was Ryan Day, and look what he's done. He brought in Tim Walton. The secondary is looking a lot better since 2021, 2022. James Laurinaitis promotion because he fired Parker Fleming. He was able to promote him and put him on the recruiting show. Look what it's done for recruiting the linebacker position. I can go on and on about this, but it just seems like a just a desperate take to be like we're the same program, but I know they're tuned in to their 4 straight wins, but if you look at the bigger picture past that game, I understand it's the biggest rivalry in all of college football. If you look at the bigger picture, we're not the same program. What are your thoughts?
Well, to your point, the whole reason why Michigan fell off last year was because they didn't have the recruiting for years and years backed up where they were able to replenish all of that talent. The reason why Michigan was so good the last few years is because they had an elite coaching staff, like Jim Harbaugh and his guys. Let's call it let's call it what it was. They were able to get the most out of guys, especially when they weren't as highly touted of a recruit, and that's how they built their program. They didn't get a whole lot of 5-star, flashy guys. Now, sure, they got some of them. I mean, JJ McCarthy was a 5-star recruit. I think Will Johnson was a 5-star recruit, but they didn't have enough of those guys built up in the depth to sustain once they lost all that talent after the national championship year. Ohio State, even though they lose 15 starters from last year's national championship team, they've still got guys who are coming in that are 5-star recruits. Like you lose Will Howard as your quarterback, okay, let's bring in 5-star recruit Julian Sayin. You lose, Trevion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins at running back, okay. We've got James Peoples, who's a 4-star recruit, and we bring in a transfer portal guy, CJ Donaldson. You still got 5-star recruits at wide receiver. Pretty much every, 1 through 4, they're 5-star guys. Then you go ahead and get the best tight end in the portal. And your offense is pretty much set because you got offensive linemen who, even though Ohio State loses 4 out of the 5 starting linemen that they had to start last season, like they're gone, they've got 4 guys who played a lot of football last year, especially towards the CFP run. So they're going to be fine there. The secondary, you've got probably the best defensive player in college football in Caleb Downs. Again, you were able to get him from the transfer portal, 5-star guy. Your corners, you got, Davison Igbinosun, who is a freshman All-American Ole Miss before he transferred in last year. Yes, he commits a lot of penalties. He's still pretty good. Got Jermaine Matthews at the other end. And again, you go down the line and like Devin Sanchez, 5-star recruit coming in as a true freshman. I don't think he's play a whole lot this year, but he might. My point is, and your point also, is the depth that this team has is based off of the recruiting wins that they were able to get over the last few years. That's not something that Michigan has. So when they fall to 6-6, 7-6, whatever they ended up being last year, you see it because they didn't have the same level of coaching. Like Sharon Moore is a downgrade. Like, let's just call it what it is from Harbaugh. And until he's able to build that recruiting base back up, they're not going to be a playoff team. Unfortunately, their schedule is baby shit soft next year, like this year. So they might luck into a playoff spot. Like they don't play anyone good until Ohio State. So just based off of sheer easiness on their schedule, they have an outside shot this year. But next year, their schedule is a lot harder. And I don't see them making the playoff in 2026 unless they have a stellar recruiting class this year. And so far, that doesn't look like to be the case.
Yeah, and just like they're arguing the point. They're like I've seen comments on X and stuff. They only have a linebacker and a safety. I'm like, no, you're about to find out that one of our best corners was actually half starting. I think Jermaine Matthews Jr. is going to be the best corner on the field.
Agreed.
I mean, even as like I think it was what was this freshman sophomore year, he had the highest lockdown. Yes, last year sophomore, he had the highest lockdown grade. I think it was at like 90%, just man coverage. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's what Ohio State needs. And just like I feel like, they're just not giving enough credit. I mean, yeah, we don't have much depth on the defensive line, but there's still talent on the defensive line. But other than that, man, a point that I made is like, if you look at those recruiting classes that Michigan brought in towards the end of Jim Harbaugh era, they weren't that great. I mean, we're talking about
Yep.
15, uh 12. So it's kind of like you have to bring that into account when we're looking at, like, when you have people talking about, oh, Ohio State is going to take this Michigan
Yep.
downfall, and just they're like, oh, they're playing Texas like we did the first game. It's bound to happen. Like, honestly, dude, I'm I'm not sure that I'm gonna have Ohio State beating Texas, all because they're like, it's gonna be the first
It's gonna be
game.
close.
It's gonna be close. I'm not gonna say they're gonna get blown out. It's the first game. They're breaking in a new quarterback. Maybe Matt Patricia has to get some kinks worked out in the defense. Maybe Brian Hartline would have loved some, easier warm-ups in order to get some kinks out as well. But we'll see. And I also, so Sage Ohio put faith in that Matt Patricia D coach will have defense cooking. Yeah, but I don't know if you agree with me on this, but the one thing I'm worried about is, he's coming from the pros. He hasn't been in college since what, like his time at Syracuse, and it's
Yeah,
just
it's been
like
almost 25 years.
ha- there's a chance that he's really going to have to work on catching up to the game of college football, or he'll just get completely left behind and won't work out. That's just the worry I has. I don't know if you have the same worry or not.
I have been skeptical. I was skeptical on the Patricia hire from the get-go. Um, you know, I, I was skeptical with the fact that yes, he hadn't been really in the college football game for almost 25 years, and the fact that he didn't have a job last year concerned me. If he's such a great football mind, why wouldn't anyone want to hire him last year? I will say so far the returns on him seem to be good. The players seem to love him. He's done well in the recruiting trail. Like he's actually going and visiting prospects, and it seems like he's revealing more of a personality that he didn't really show in the NFL. So far, he's said all of the right stuff. He's done, you know, things with the current players. He's done all the right things with them in a practice setting, but we're not really going to know until there's an actual game to be played. So until week one against Texas, that's when we're really going to find out what Patricia's got in terms of scheming up a defense and having those guys go out and play a really talented Texas team. So I I didn't like the hire when it first happened, but as I've said many times on this show, I am willing to be wrong. Like, in fact, I want to be wrong. Like, I want him to be good. Like, I want their defense to be good. So we'll see what happens. I do tend to think that they're going to struggle a little bit in that week one matchup just because it is the first game in a new system with a new coach. And like you mentioned, also a new starting quarterback, new first time play caller as an offensive coordinator. So there's a lot of firsts, in that week one game, and it's a really tough opponent to go through a lot of firsts with. So I want to see how fall camp shapes up and how people look then before I make an official prediction. But if they drop that opening game to Texas, that's fine. They've got wiggle room. I don't think they're gonna have an issue with Penn State until Penn State actually beats Ohio State. I'm not going to be worried about them. It's just more of that last game of the year.
Yeah,
That's where my concern lies.
yeah. I'm not gonna lie, man. There was one coach from the NFL who I was really hoping for, but I feel like it was a big of a stretch. I was really hoping for Kansas City's defensive line coach Joe Cullen. Looks like he has a history of,
Yeah,
let's see, of being, in like long history being in the pros.
there was some
Defensive
talk
court.
there with that could have happened, but obviously they went in a different direction.
Wait, there was like a legitimate chance that would have happened.
Yeah. I mean, I get like he talked to people. You know what I mean? Like in like introductory talks to try to see who might be interested in in the job. I think he was one of the guys that he made calls to, but I don't know. I don't know how far the conversations actually went.
Yeah, man. But one last question. So
Sure.
when it comes to promoting internally, you know, I always get flashbacks as to where they promoted Kerry Coombs to defensive coordinator, which should not have
Hmm.
happened. And he was a great, I mean, he was a really good recruiter, great recruiter. He really held down, Michigan, mostly the inner cities of Detroit, and he was a good defensive back coach. But it would like when they promoted him to defensive coordinator. It didn't work out. He left, and then just like there was the downfall with for a little bit for the secondary. My fear is that, you know, when gosh, when Brian Hartline was defensive coordinator in 23, but offensive coordinator in 23, but he didn't really do much.
Yeah, he wasn't
And
in
Day
charge
took
of
over
really
play
anything on the
calling
offense. Yeah.
because he clearly wasn't ready. I mean, my fear is like, what if he's not ready again? Does a bad job? You know, Day and him just don't disagree, and then we lose one of our best recruiters. I mean, is that one of your fears, or like, do you think
Actually,
he's good?
actually no. Here's the only so I understand part of the reason why Ryan Day didn't give up play calling duties was because he's more of a control freak than anything. Like when he tried to hand over the play calling duties the first time to Hartline, he realized I can't do this right now. Like he had to take it back because he was so locked into just having that control all the time. But once NIL stuff started to ramp up, he realized, and that's why he brought in Chip, was look, I have to take a step back. I got to be more of a CEO if I want to have time for all of this to work. A lot of being a head coach in college football right now, which is why the Ohio State was even able to get Chip Kelly, is because there's a lot of bullshit outside of football you got to deal with. Like you got to deal with fundraising, you got to deal with NIL collectives, you got to work on progress reports for the APR, like all kinds of stuff that just has nothing to do with actual football. And so, in order for him to have more time for all of that crap, he knows he needs a play caller. Like he needs someone who he can turn the play sheet over to. Hartline has done pretty much everything you could possibly ask with his positional coach, as a positional coach. He has developed all kinds of wide receivers. He recruits at an outstanding level, like he's the most valuable recruiter in the country. He continues to be the most valuable recruiter in the country, even though he's, got promoted offensive coordinator. Like he's still got a 5-star recruit coming in this class. He's working on getting one for next year as well. And he, if you're gonna ever promote him, now is the time to do it. You're off a national championship. You're losing a lot of starters. So even if you have a slight bit of a down year, you've got that equity banked up from the fan base of winning a national title. And quite frankly, if you want to keep one of your most valuable recruiters and assistant coaches, you're gonna have to make him happy and promote him at some point. Like he's had head coaching interviews in the past. Like you clearly know that's an aspiration of his. And he's going to leave for an offensive coordinator job elsewhere that's going to give him the experience of calling plays in order to reach that ultimate goal if Ohio State doesn't give him that platform. So I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, I at the end of the day, I think it was like a blessing for him to be able to learn under Chip Kelly, and
Oh, for sure.
you know, hopefully we see that type of growth that he's learned the under Chip Kelly. But other than that, man, you mentioned somewhat of fallback. I personally don't think it's gonna be this big step back. I don't see them
I don't
going
think
eight
so
and
either.
four like 9-3. I have the
Oh, no.
floor being 10-2 and the ceiling being one loss. So that's pretty much
Yep.
it. But all right, man. Well, thanks for having me on. It's always great. You guys run a great show. And is this your first time in on the call-in show yourself, by
No,
yourself?
I had to do it one other time as well. But Garrison, he had something pop up. So like he was able to run most of Monday's show solo because I was busy moving. So kind of returning the favor for him. So he'll be back. We'll both be on the show on Monday. So we'll both be together.
Gotcha. Well, doing a good job, man. I'm just thinking like, man, like if I had to
Appreciate it.
do if I had to do a call-in show by myself, I don't know how I would do because I have my co-host to bounce ideas off and stuff, and that
Yeah.
always helps. But doing a good job, man. But all right, man. God bless and go
Appreciate it.
Bucks. Yep. Later.
Thanks for calling in, Rob. Go Bucks. Well, that'll do it here for the call-in show today. Before I go ahead and leave, just want to give a shout out to all of our members here at the Boise College Football. Appreciate your contributions. You can see the membership scrolling here on the screen. The Block O Club, JT wasn't sure, we don't give a damn. Those are the 3 tiers we have for the memberships. You get exclusive access to certain content that we're rolling out on the channel. On Tuesday, we actually had an interview with Luke Montgomery. Garrison was a part of that as well as Mike. And then that was exclusive for members for the Ohio State channel. So if you want to see cool content like that, please go ahead and join a membership. That's how we're able to bring some of that cool content to for you. And we're all just trying to build community here, Ohio State community, and any contributions, like I mentioned, would be greatly appreciated. So, as I mentioned before, right there with Rob, me and Garrison will both be back on Monday, on Labor Day Monday. So, for the primetime live show, we'll have a lot to talk about then, and we'll see you then. OH. Bye.